African Americans, or should I say black people in America, are some of the most lost people when it comes to their identity. You are called and named after 2 continents. Yeah, I know. 2 that have countries in them. So how does that identify you? So now we have to get through the lies and find out what's the truth. So let's wake up and see what is our true identity. We're going to first start off with, are we the aboriginal Americans, the ones who was found here by the Europeans, the ones who are copper colored? Are we the ancient Egyptians, the Kemetics? Are we from Kemet? Because we claiming a lot, but what are we? We also say we are the black Hebrew Israelites. But you have another race saying that they are the Jews or Jewish. And then you have a big number of people who just say we are Africans. But that doesn't identify us when it's just one big continent. 1492, Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue. It's a very significant history in the Western world. This is when Christopher Columbus came across the Atlantic Ocean to the Americas. This is also the same time we are about to get stolen as far as history and identity. Now, 1492 is very important, not only over here in America, but it's also important in Europe. Major events was going on that shaped the world to where it's at today and where we lost our identity. The Jews got expelled from Spain in 1492 when they was under the Moorish rulership. And we also, I gotta slide this in, we also claim to be Moors and Moorish. This is the time of the Reconquista, when Moors, or what they'll say Islam, was fighting the Christians. Now, we're going to have to focus on Islam and Christians because those are cold words, but they're not identifying who the people are, because these are like religious wars and they got different nationalities on both sides of the field. So first thing we're going to do is look at some pictures of the Moors so you can put a face with the name. That way you don't be getting confused. And keep in mind that Moors is synonymous with Islam. It does not mean black the way you might hear people say it today. Moor is another word for Islamic faith people during the Conquista. So when you think of Moor, think of Islam. Okay, now I hope that you remember that in your head. Islam is Moors, Muslims is Moors. Has nothing to do with color when you hear the word Moor. Bet. Let's go. So, in the green you have, this is ancient Spain. This is the green is what the Moors was ruling. Then you have those Christian kingdoms at the top. Portugal, Castile, Aragon, Leon. So these kingdoms are going to come together and they're going to fight the Moors / Jews. It wasn't the Moors that just got beat by themselves. It was different kingdoms that came together. Now, we're about to look to see how these people in these kingdoms look. The first one we're going to look at is the crown of Aragon. And let's see who the rulers were. Let's get it. Now here we have a coat of arms of the Kingdom of Aragon from 1281. This is another one from 15th to 16th century. So that's from the 1400s all the way up to the year 1600. And again, as you see, they are melanated. And this is during slavery. This is the reason why I said I wanted you to remember that Moor is synonymous or means Islam or Muslim. Because if you go do a Google search and you type in Moors of Europe, you're going to get these people who's ruling. But that's not the case. That's what's throwing a lot of people off in this history, is when you do your Google search and it's showing melanated people like this ruling. But these are the Christians. Yes. Take a little moment if you need to. Let that soak in. These are the Christians. So when they send the Reconquista and they having the Muslim and Christian war during the Dark Ages, it is a black on black war. Yeah. A little different than what you always was told, huh? We just seen who was ruling in the kingdom of Aragon. Now we about to see who's ruling in the kingdom of Portugal. And remember, when you type this on a Google search, they all gonna come up as Moors. But these is the Christians that the Moors was fighting. And as you see right here on this picture from 1570 to 1580, the man on a horse appears to be the king of Portugal. And if you see in the background, you see a lot of free melanated people, and you see some so-called white people. But we focus on who ruling, who has the highest status. This black Christian, the ones who was going to war with the Moors of Islam. And if you look at him, that man midnight black, he closed his eyes, you can't see his face. But remember, these are not Moors. These are Christians. Here go another picture of a king of Portugal from 1767 to 1826. They were still in rulership, and we supposed to be over here picking cotton in America. See, the lies are starting to catch up, and the truth is revealing itself. We about to get to it, so I hope you stay with me. Okay, now we about to focus on the kingdom of Leon and the kingdom of Castile. Now, I'm not gonna cap. I couldn't find none of the coat of arms or any art depicting and saying that's who it is. It's about the best I can do. As you see, the two kingdoms merge. But we've been lied to so much and had so much hidden from us. I mean, we could put two and two together. The other two melanated rulers, these two melanated rulers, that's who was ruling Europe. That's why it's called the Dark Ages. Now, let's go a little deeper. Now you might be confused and like, okay, they both melanated. So who are we? Because that's what I told you. I was going to show you who we are. Well, we are about to see what's the difference between them. I'm going to point out some things that's different between them for the ones who I see as some of the noble people. And then we'll come to a conclusion if this can possibly be you. Okay, so on his first picture, you see the Moor, or what you would call the Islamic guy, Muslim, at the bottom with the turban on, sword in his hand. Different style. Then you see the Christian at the top. He dressed totally different than the Moor. I don't know what to call what they have on, but you can kind of see that king royal robe around him. And also, you'll notice you're going to always see the Moors with turbans and swords around their waist. And you're going to see a lot of the Christians, they are the knights. They have on a lot of armor, you know. So that's a good way to tell the difference on who's who. I'm going to show a couple more pictures, and I'm going to let you see if you can see the difference on your own without me pointing it out. So this right here is an illustration for anyone who's doubting the status of those Christians. When you look at the nobility, you see the knights and the lords and everything, and you see they dress the same how they was dressed on those illustrations. You see them right under the king, and under them are the knights, which we just showed them in their knight gear. Now, at the very bottom are the common people, the peasants, the priests, and guess who else? The Jews. So if you claim to be a Hebrew Israelite, you are at the bottom. You was converted to Christianity when you got expelled from Spain in 1492. You had to either leave, convert, or die, one or the other. But we now see that the Jews are not ruling this Christian kingdom. They're at the very bottom. Status is lost, depleted for the Jews, so we know. This here we about to get into the phenotype, which is a description of your physical characteristics like hair color, eye color, basically how you look. You should look just like your ancestors. So we're going to compare the looks of the Moors and the European Christians and see, do they have the same phenotype or are they different people? So we won't put them under the same umbrella. We have right here the Christians at the top and the Moors at the bottom, and it could also be Jews at the bottom. But remember one thing, the Moors are not one nationality. It's a bunch of nationalities that came together. So that's why the Moors are going to be looking different, and it's hard to tell who's who. But what I notice is the Christians have curlier hair, looser curly instead of tight coils, and their eyes look like it pop out their socket or something. With the Moors and the Jews, they have thick beards, real thick beards. Just like over here in America, you have some people who can't grow facial hair at all, and then you have some people who can grow facial hair. Now, I can tell you for certain that the Jews grow facial hair. So when you look at a lot of these Moors that have beards, they could possibly be Jews because they was living among each other. They was allies with each other. But you also have Moors like this at the bottom who don't have no facial hair, which it could be some type of other nationality that was flying under the banner of a Moor. But the Christians, their eyes are puffy or popping out their socket. Another picture where you see their phenotype is totally different. Now, one thing I want you to notice with these pictures, and y'all rewind it and study it for yourself, pause it or whatever. But you see the Moors was beefing with the Caucasians, and the Christians was befriending them, but the Christians was ruling over the Caucasians. We'll get into that a little bit later. This brings us back to the year 1492. What we just went over is the things that was going on that led up to 1492, where you had the black Muslims, what we call the Moors, and the black Christians. I really don't have a nationality to give them. That's why I keep on saying black Christians. They were going to war with each other, which was a black on black war, black on black crime, the Reconquista. But now, 1492, they took over Spain, took down the Moors, and they expelled the Jews because they hated the Jews more than they hated the Moors. Here is a map showing you the different areas the Jews lived in Europe, and it's got the years that they was kicked out of those places. And as you see, they lived in many places in Europe, and that's why sometimes it's hard to tell who's Jew, who's not. It's a mixed multitude of different melanated people from different nations. But what we're going to focus on is at the 1492 over by Spain and Portugal, where you see the arrow. And when you see where they migrated to, of course, you see they went into Africa. So you have a lot of Jews / Hebrew Israelites that are still over there in Africa. But I want you to look at this one important arrow that's saying going to Brazil. which should read going to Americas, to the Americas. So now we about to go and sell the ocean blue to America, and let's see what happened to these Jews who got expelled. After losing everything, being stripped of their riches, they finally made it to the Americas after selling weeks. Now they have nothing to themselves, no land, and thus they became the Pirates of the Caribbean. That's right, you heard me well, Pirates of the Caribbean. If you've seen the movie, you know Jack Frost didn't have a homeland. Pirates don't have homeland, that's why they live on the sea and still. You see the dreadlocks in his head. You see the bandana around his head. These are people who just been put through exile. And by who? They show it to you right in your face in the movies. And they call it entertainment. But they always put the truth right there. You see who that is. That's them Europeans. Still chasing the Jews because they hate them. And the same year that the Moors got expelled is the same year that Christopher Columbus discovered America, October 2nd. The Moors got expelled from Europe in February of 1492, and Christopher Columbus fake discovered when they was actually following the Jews who got expelled. So when Columbus came to America and the conquistadors, this is how the interaction with the aboriginals of America would have really looked. And this here make more sense than what you was taught in school. Why I say that? Because the Native Americans would not have been so open to the pale-face white boy. But someone that looked like them, a distant cousin, yes. And they already had their cousins, the Jews, who was running from Europe because they was getting slaughtered to convert to Christianity over in America. So this is why they was able to get stabbed in their back and cutthroated, because the people looked just like them. So let's check out the phenotype of the Americans. What I noticed with the Americans is, for the most part, they don't have facial hair also like the Christians, but you will find very few who do have a little facial hair. But for the most part, they don't. But I also noticed that a lot of the Americans have dreadlocks. But even when we look at them, we favor so much as melanated people for the most part. You can't really tell who's who. Now, if you know anything about the Americans or the aboriginals of Americans, people would tell you that they are the lost 10 tribes of Israel. So when you look at the Americans and some of the Jews over in Europe, they favor so much because they are the same people. So how deep does this rabbit hole go? You're asking yourself, am I an Aboriginal American? Am I a Jew? Am I a Moor? Am I a black Christian? We have 4 different type of black people that we all claiming to be over here in America now. How do I supposed to know who I am? And what happened? What was going on? How did we forget? Well, it started something like this. It ended up like this, with the Aboriginal Americans and Jews being enslaved and Christianity thrown down their throat. But I gotta take you back to Europe to show you how the white man got involved. Let's go.
Someone asked a question. Why do we see?
Now, you may have seen some books or articles of slavery in the Barbary states where the Moors had white people in slavery. But it's not slavery the way you think it was going on. What the Moors was doing was more like...
It's big pimpin', baby. That's right, big pimpin'.
Yeah, you heard that right. They was doing what we call human trafficking today. They was selling the white women as prostitutes, and sometimes they was keeping them as concubines. Because in the Quran and the Bible, you can have multiple wives and concubines. So that was them practicing their faith. That's what they did with the white women. More with the men, they just didn't tolerate them at all. Put them to hard labor or whatever. So the Christians took this to their advantage. Your enemy is my enemy, so they can make us friends. Because the white man was warring with the Moors. So the Christians took them and put them in positions like the Pope, made them priests, monks, and other things in the Catholic Church. This is who we are called the beasts. Because these wasn't men. They are known as the wild men of Europe.
Then I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his horns 10 crowns, and on his heads a blasphemous name. Now the beast which I saw was like a leopard. His feet were like the feet of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion. The dragon gave him his power, his throne, and great authority. And I saw one of his heads as if it had been mortally wounded, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world marveled and followed the beast. So they worshipped the dragon, who gave authority to the beast, and they worshipped the beast.
Who is like the beast? Who is able to make war with him?
And he was given a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and he was given authority to continue for 42 months. Then he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name, his tabernacle, and those who dwell in heaven. It was granted to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And authority was given him over every tribe, tongue, and nation. All who dwell on the earth will worship him, whose names have not been written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. If anyone has an ear, let him hear. He who leads into captivity shall go into captivity. He who kills with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints.
So this should give you a better perspective on why they still chase the Jews once they expelled them out of Europe. This here is a holy war for the righteous, and the Aboriginal Americans are also part of the 12 tribes. We're all Israelites, for the most part. A few of you are not. But still, this is a holy war that's going on. This is what a term all skin folk and kinfolk come in at. Because the people who you have as your leaders, who you think are for you, are actually those same black Christians that been warring with us for hundreds of years. So I came across this post right here with someone posting and said the real history of the USA Republic, the ones who actually founded America. And they proud because they saying it was really founded by melanated people. But when you lost and just want a sense of pride, you're going to accept anything. But if you look close at these people who they say are the founders, do they look like the Moor/Jews, or do they look more like the black Christians? Even the Haitian Revolution was not the revolution that you thought it was. It goes deeper. But I'm not gonna get into that today. But if you would like for me to break down what really happened in the Haiti Revolution, comment down below and I can whip that up for you. But in the meantime, you're asking yourself, well, you still didn't tell me who I am. I know I didn't tell you specifically who you are. I gave you clues to study and look for yourself, your phenotype. Who do you look like? You are your father's child and your grandfather's grandchild. So you will have their traits. You will have their spirit. You will have all that they have. So if your spirit aligns with being a Jew, most likely you're a Jew. If your spirit aligns with being an aboriginal American, which is also an Israelite, 9 out of 10, you are an aboriginal American. If you align with being an African, an Egyptian, because they also got kicked out of their land. You might not be over here in mass numbers, but you could possibly be that Egyptian. You could be that Moor. And some of you can be these Christians. Go within. Do your research. Look in the mirror. Look at the phenotype. And you will find your answer on who you are for the most part. What is your hair texture? Can you grow a full beard? What things you can't do that the others around you can do? And this also is another reason why black people can't come together, because we are not all the same. All skin folk ain't kin folk. Peace.